They keep changing the figures. You know, figures don't lie, but liars figure. And it always used to be everybody knew 3 million people died of malaria every year, but recently it's fallen to 1 million. And they're simply lying because they hate to admit all the people that they've killed. In 1973, Family Planning Perspective magazine, which is published in Santa Cruz, California by Guttmacher Institute, which is a subdivision of Planned Parenthood, publishes, and you'll actually see the page here, they publish how are we going to control the population? Well, first of all, we need a marriage tax. You ever wonder why we have a marriage tax? The IRS has it set up so it's more expensive to get married than not to be married. You ever wonder why that is? It really doesn't make sense, does it? Unless you understand that these people don't make mistakes. They know exactly what they don't want you to get married. Why? Married people have children. Of course, non-married people have children too, but there's a lot more chance you're going to have children if you're married than not, so we're going to make it more expensive for you. And then, of course, they talk about we want to encourage homosexuality. Why would anybody want to encourage people to go into homosexuality? Why? Because they don't reproduce and have children. And then we want to put something into the water. It's all right here. You'll find it in the book. Page, we got their permission to put that into our syllabus. You must understand these people know exactly what they're doing. They just don't want you to know. And then, of course, there are other references. But 1974, over Henry Kissinger's signature is published the National Security Study Memorandum 200, the master plan for depopulation of the world. And of course, Dr. Ayub was talking about that in his presentation. Very important. It was actually top secret for many years. It has been declassified. You can pull it down off the internet, or you can get at least some references to it in our syllabus, although we have the entire study report, but you can actually pull it down off the internet, NSSM 200. And what they say is we've got to restrict population throughout the rest of the world. First of all, in the developed countries, and then, of course, in the underdeveloped countries. And that's why we give all of these, hundreds of millions of dollars every year to the United Nations Planning, the Family Planning Association, why we finance abortion in China, why we finance abortion throughout the rest of the world, why we put those contraceptive vaccines out. And I've talked to people from Kenya and from the Philippines, both where they've, without knowledge of women, they've given them contraceptive vaccines so they can't conceive and taken away the most important thing a woman can have, the ability to have children. But you see, these evil and wicked people have no human compassion. They just have a goal, and that is sustainable development. And then, of course, in 1979, in Alberton, Georgia, a man walks into one of the local granite companies. And Alberton is on the northeastern part of Georgia. And they have granite, large granite deposits there, and they make gravestones. But a man walked in and announced he wanted them to build a monument. And he represented a secret group. He said his name was R.C. Christian, but it really wasn't. Everybody knew that was not his real name. And nobody to this date knows who the secret group is he represented. But you can go to Alberton, Georgia. You go to my webpage, and you'll see pictures of the Georgia Guidestones. Took a year or so before they were actually built. They're used as a satanic center, and they have satanic parties and naked parties, and the UFOs have been seen hovering over the area. I've been there. I've been to all the files there at the library. This is the satanic center. It's the American counterpart of the English Stonehenge and of the other temples that are built to the occult. The Great Pyramids are actually part of this whole concept of sun worship. That's why you have them on the back of your dollar bill. It's all part of this world occult movement. And they hide their emblems in plain sight, and most people have never heard them. But the important thing about the Georgia Guidestones, which were ultimately dedicated, I believe, in 1980, is that there are 10 commandments. They're written in 8 different languages, in English and Russian and Spanish and Swahili and Hebrew and Hindi and Chinese, and I forgot the other one. But of course, point number 1 is maintain the world population of 500 million in constant balance with nature, which doesn't really sound too bad unless you understand that there are over 6 million people here, and they're talking about killing off over 90% of the world's population. And there really are people who have a different worldview because they worship a different God. 1991, we had the Gulf War. Somewhere between a third and half of the young men who went over to that are ill today. and we have the reports of the government going into the background of the Gulf War illness. 30% of the young men are coming back from the recent Gulf War. Within 3 months of coming home are now ill. They say it must be post-traumatic stress syndrome. Oh, it couldn't be anything else. Oh, we're simply poisoning our young people. And many of them, of course, will be infertile, and many of the children will be born deformed. And about 40% of the wives of the veterans of the first Gulf War illness, have to contract the Gulf War illness from their husbands, which is in some form a communicable disease. There's a wonderful book over here written by a former professor at MD Anderson Clinic. It's called Project Daylily. Project Daylily was the code word for creating the AIDS epidemic and all the new diseases. And of course, Dr. Garth Nicholson, who I consider a friend, stumbled onto this when he was a tenured professor. His closest associate there was murdered. A number of his students were murdered. It's an incredible story. It's written as fiction, but it's really true. As he says, I just changed the name so I wouldn't get sued. They've tried to kill him many times. Project Daylily, I hope we have some copies in. If you don't, you'll want to get it from us, going into how they created all these new diseases here in this country. We do know that in 1991, Jacques Cousteau, that great humanitarian who swims with the dolphins, gave an interview before the UNESCO Courier, November 1991, and if you want a copy, we'll be glad to get it for you, in which he said, it's a terrible thing to say, but we're going to have to eliminate 325,000 people a day. Terrible thing to say, but we're going to have to do it to bring the earth back into balance. You have to understand that we are involved in a spiritual battle for the souls of men, and water fluoridation is simply one part of this. Water fluoridation, the NutraSweet, which is in our product, which is a deadly poison, and yet they know it impacts upon the whole endocrine system and upon the mind and produces cancer. So using between fluoride, between mercury in the vaccines, and the aluminum in the vaccines, and water, we are under attack today. Now, we can do one of several things. We can go home and ignore what you've heard, or you can try to prove me wrong. I hope you'll want to get our material. And, of course, you can go to my website and pull down my articles. And, of course, get many of the other websites that are out there, fluoridealert.org. Don't go to com. Fluoridealert.org. Dr. Potter. Get those articles. Put together your own syllabus. Learn how to present this. Learn my little mnemonic, Fluoride, fertility lowers intelligence. U, undifferentiated cells, which is cancel. O for osseous or bone. R for thyroid. I for infirmity. D for dental fluorosis. E for endocrine dysfunction and heart disease. Learn how to present it. Have the documents before you. Concede the point that dental and oral health is far better than it was 50 years ago. But at what cost? And have the material available for you and present it and present it effectively. And I believe that this is the most important issue we can utilize at the present time, because it affects every person in the United States. And only when people realize that they are under attack, that it is they that may very well become ill, or that their children. And when they begin to understand it's going to take 10 to 15 IQ points off of their children and grandchildren, at that point, people are going to begin to try to prove you wrong. And when they find you're right, that hopefully they will join us in this epic struggle for the survival of Western civilization and for the souls of men. Because behind everything that's going on, as you've heard me say so many times, is this spiritual battle, this eternal spiritual battle that has been here since the inception of mankind and will be waged until a man is no longer here on the earth, till we've all been called home. But we are called to do our best. And let me simply remind you, as we're told in the book of Ephesians, for put ye on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. God bless you. Thank you so much. I wasn't waiting for a standing ovation.